Hi everyone. Maybe I should just reintroduce myself. I'm CK Burch. This is my geek review of Man of Steel, and it's a little tough getting back into the swing of things because I planned to redo my Star Trek Into Darkness review a little while ago. Then life happened. A lot of work came up. I was working a lot, and then I finished editing and weeding out all the typos from my new book, which is coming out in about a week. Shameless plug. So my geek review has not gotten the attention that I would have liked to have given it. So I need to redo my Star Trek Into Darkness review, and I was going to do After Earth, but I heard too many negative reviews to really justify shelling out the cash to go see the film in the theaters just to do a YouTube review that maybe people will or will not watch. Um, so why am I doing this one? Well, because ultimately, Man of Steel was a film that I wanted to see and was a film that I wanted to put money down to go and see. So I did, and I've seen it twice now. And the first time I was absolutely jazzed, totally blown away. And the second time is when I saw the man behind the curtain, and I am not pleased. There are a lot of things wrong with Man of Steel. There's quite a few things that are right, but there's a lot of things that are wrong with Man of Steel. It is an entertaining film. It is a very entertaining film. It is worth seeing in the theaters at least once. Because you will be shell-shocked, you will be thrown for a loop. The film is brutal, visceral, pulls no punches, is absolutely epic in scope and awe-inspiring, but the story is crap. I was trying to think of a better way to put it, but the story is crap. Um, And the worst part about that is that there were a lot of good directions that they took. For example, film opens up on Krypton in its last days, and it is absolutely spellbinding. Like, the opening of the film is pitch perfect. Absolutely pitch perfect. And I've never seen nor thought of a version of Krypton that is anything like what they have done, and it completely worked for me. Everything about Krypton was fantastic. It was absolutely stunning. It was absolutely amazing, thrilling. My jaw was on the floor. I was absolutely spellbound. Um, Russell Crowe as Jor-El is amazing. Michael Shannon as Zod is intense and frightening. And the opening sequence on Krypton is amazing. But then, as soon as that ends, we take a sharp right turn into confusion. Now, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna rant. I don't give a fuck about spoilers. It's Sunday. Okay? If you haven't seen the film, what the fuck are you doing watching this weird dude in a Star Trek shirt, talk about Man of Steel? I'm just gonna go. If you don't want spoilers, go away. Go watch the movie. There you go. That's how I feel about that. Spoilers in a text post is one thing, because you start reading that and you're like, oh, well, I didn't know that was that. You see, if it's like a video of a dude talking about a thing and you don't want spoilers, don't click on the video. That's on you, Mr. Viewer or Ms. Viewer, whoever you are. But the film takes a sharp left turn into confusion zone, because immediately we are thrown into what is the present, but then we are told via flashbacks about Superman's upbringing. So we go from Superman's craft landing on Earth to Superman, or rather Clark Kent, because he's not Superman until later. Clark Kent, Kal-El, is grown. It's a fishing boat. There is an explosion on an oil rig, and people are dying, and he goes in to help. And then we flash back to him as a child in school learning how to focus his senses, and then back to him in the present sense. Now, I am not a fan of flashbacks within a narrative, utilizing multiple flashbacks to further the narrative. I think that that is cheap, and I think that that is stupid. My favorite author is Stephen King, and I will reread almost any of his books, and one of the few I will not reread is Wizard and Glass, which is Dark Tower 4, because it is one long flashback sequence in the midst of the narrative. And anytime a story utilizes flashbacks within the midst of the narrative in order to fuel the narrative, rather than a single flashback that tells the story, or giving us the chronological sequence of events, infuriates me. Because it's one thing to do one flashback to show something, right? Like, somebody has a dark secret, something that happened in their past, it's like mentioned, and they avoid it, and then eventually we have the flashback sequence where we see what it was, and it's like, oh, holy shit, that's not what I was expecting. That's one thing, okay? A flashback can be a very useful tool. A series of flashbacks in a sequence to tell a story in the midst of the story is cheap. And it is a shitty way to tell a story. So, Man of Steel utilizes, throughout the course of the film, a number of flashbacks to Superman's time as a kid in order to give us more insight on how he grew up. Not only is it confusing, but the transition to those scenes are jarring, and there's no real indication that there has been a transition until we are just there and suddenly we know it, which then leads to another confusion. So, Clark Kent saves people on an oil rig, falls in the ocean, flashback to school all of a sudden out of nowhere, comes back to the present, comes out of the water, steals some clothes, sees a school bus. We see the school bus pulling away. Then we get an aerial shot of another school bus, because now we're in the past within the flashback. And then that ends, and then we come to what is either the present or is another flashback. But it turns out to be the present, but it could have been another flash. You see what I'm saying here? So we go from the past, which is Krypton, to the present, which is our current story. Then we go to a flashback, which chronologically speaking should have come right after the Krypton sequence. Then we come back to the present, which is the story we're telling now. Then we flash back again, and this, chronologically speaking, comes after the first flashback. And then we return to what is potentially the present, but we're unsure of that because we're not giving an indicator of whether or not this is the present. Because previously, in what is considered to be the actual story, the present of the story, Clark Kent has a beard. He has like a scruffy, raggedy beard. But then, after the school bus flashback, we see Clark Kent, and he's far more clean-shaven than he was previously, which gives him a more youthful look, which led me to believe that we were in another flashback, because there was no way to fucking tell. But the clue linking this is a minor conversation that Clark happens to overhear between two government officials that kind of catches his interest, that then leads into the next sequence where Lois Lane is investigating the same thing. And then that was at the point at which I went, oh, so that's not a flashback, that is the current continual, this is what we're doing now, this is the actual story, okay. Now I kind of caught up, but it wasn't clear. Really, this is for those who have already seen the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, this is not going to make any sense. So then we go to, you know, what is a decent sequence in the film is Um, and so many problems with this fucking movie. Um, and you know what? Yesterday after I saw it, I was actually pretty jazzed about the film. But now after seeing it a second time and seeing the inner working mechanisms of this story, I'm really pissed off about it because it's so fucking entertaining. But it's so Lois Lane is investigating this thing that's going on underneath the ice. The army has found some sort of anomaly, which they think is some sort of ship. It's been there for like 20,000 years. Um, Clark investigates it, and it turns out to be Kryptonian in nature. And this key that was put into his ship when he fell out of space as a baby fits into one of the command consoles on the ship. Conveniently, it is a Kryptonian ship. And then we get exposition. His father explains to him the history of Kryptonians who had branched out and settled on different colonies. And, one of the things that I think that people who tell stories like this is that you've got technology that's 20,000 years old, right? It's 20,000 years old, and yet it is the same working technology and principles as this culture that has only been dead for approximately 33 years. Does anybody see any problems with this? Because 20,000 years ago, I think we had fire, and now we've got iPads. We have touchscreen technology. This is a huge leap in logic. The fact that a space-born civilization, after a period of 20,000 years, would have sat in such a period of stagnant technological advancement that a ship that they sent out to potentially colonize a planet still is not only functional, but utilizes the same technological keywork and framing that they have 20,000 years later. Okay? This is a dead culture. It's only been dead for 33 years, but they still use the same technology that they did 20,000 years previously. That does not make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So then, Lois follows Clark Kent into the ship, and she gets attacked by its defenses, and he saves her, and he manages to get the ship to take off, and he takes it to the Arctic Circle. She tries to publish a story around these events, which is told to us in narration. And this is another problem that I have with the film, is that there's nothing wrong with narration in places, but when you're utilizing narration as a shortcut to tell your story while you're showing us another bit of the story to satisfy the OCD of the audience, that is insulting. The narration of Lois's story was absolutely unnecessary as a narrative device within the framework of the story. You could have left that out and it would have been much better. So Lois Lane writes the story. She writes an article about finding a ship, about this guy who she found on the ship, bringing 1 and 1 makes 2. So now this guy is clearly an alien. This ship was an alien from outer space. Daily Planet won't publish the story because, aliens walking on Earth. No, we're not going to publish that in a legitimate newspaper. So Lois Lane is like, hey, I'm going to get this out there. So she passes it on to a guy as an anonymous source, a guy who runs a website which is, I guess, probably the digital equivalent of the National Enquirer, if you will. But she needs to have the story out there. So she gives it to him anonymously to leak out on the internet while she continues her search and tracking down leads in order to figure out who this guy is and where he comes from. Meanwhile, Clark has set down the ship that he found, which it turns out was a part of that whole colonization period of Krypton, in which they basically had large breeding chambers that they went from planet to planet, and they went to terraform each planet in order to create hospitable worlds for Kryptonians to branch out into. For some reason, it didn't work. For some reason, the Kryptonians aren't actually like. That's another problem. That's my phone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm very, very, very sorry. Soft now. Soft. That's another problem I have, is that for some reason there aren't more Kryptonians out there, because like why don't they have this large, massive infrastructure? Because that is what you would infer from that. They spread out amongst the stars to terraform worlds, to establish colonies and everything. But for some reason, as we see later on in the film, there's nothing but like these colonization efforts, these outposts that were built. Everyone died for some unknown reason. Because the plot needs it to happen. Why? There's no explanations given. It's all hypothesized, and it happened 100,000 years ago, apparently. You know, the same principle between a culture that still utilizes the same technology that's 20,000 years old, to the idea that after, like 100,000 years ago, we were using the same technology as well. That is essentially what they are putting forth with this film, is that Krypton was a technologically stagnant culture for 100,000 years. 100,000 years ago, they were branching out, and they were sending out all of these different technological terraforming expeditions to create outposts. Something happened. They all died, but their technology all still works. It all runs on the same principle, and it's still easily accessible. It's because it's the same damn technology, and it all still works. And I don't get how that is feasible or logical, because 100,000 years ago, you're crawling out of the primordial ooze. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna try not to. But you get the point, right? You get the point. Because later, we're going to see that a different faction of Kryptonians, General Zod and his people, who were thrown into dimensional limbo for their crimes against Krypton, they were thrown into dimensional limbo, but when Krypton blew up, they were knocked out of this dimensional limbo. And later on, it's explained that they retrofitted their ship. They traveled to all the old outposts that had been settled upon somewhere between 100 and 20,000 years ago, and they find nothing but dead outposts, people who are dead for no apparent reason other than the fact that they are dead because the plot says so, and then they harvest technology from those outposts that apparently still works and is in working enough condition to take it to the planet Earth and utilize in attempting to terraform said planet. This doesn't make any sense. I was not this angry like 30 minutes ago, and I thought, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do this review, and I had no idea how pissed off I was about this fucking ass of a story until I started going off just now. So we get Superman learning how to fly, which is a great scene, and it's like, the opening on Krypton is a great, amazing, fantastic, epic science fiction sequence. Superman learning how to fly is great. It's so wonderful and amazing. And then we get Lois Lane tracking down all our leads to find Clark Kent, and more narration from Lois, apparently writing this article in her head, and until she finally comes to the Clark farmhouse in Smallville. And she goes to the grave of Jonathan Kent, Oh yeah, by the way, there was another. Yeah. That. Never mind. Never mind. I already covered it. The flashback with the school bus. I'm not gonna go backwards to that one. But then we come back to another flashback, and this, out of all the flashbacks, is legitimately the one that I think that they could have saved for this moment specifically and utilized, as I had said earlier, as that flashback, that device that made you go, "Holy shit! I can't. That wasn't what I was expecting there." So it turns out Jonathan Kent dies. Now, if you're a fan of Superman at all in any way, shape, or form, this is not a surprise because Jonathan Kent's death is pivotal to the development of Clark Kent, the Man of Steel himself, in understanding the fragility of human life. Because this is the moment where he, for all his power, cannot save his own father. But, in a wonderful twist, in an absolutely powerful, emotional twist, what this film does is it has Clark Kent choose not to save his father because his father tells him not to, because that would expose him in front of all these people who are hiding from a tornado seeking refuge, and Clark would reveal the fact that he has these special powers. And both times I saw this scene, I was crying. If there is anything in this film that is pitch perfect, beyond that opening sequence on Krypton, if there is anything in this film that is pitch perfect, it is this scene. And it is mind-boggling, to say the least, because amidst the illogical sensibilities of the rest of the film, this almost exists as a paradox within that it can be so effective and so good to see Jonathan Kent acting as a hero, getting all these people to safety, and then, he's about to be set upon by this tornado, and Clark looks around and you can tell he's going to go after him, and he starts to, but Pa Kent just puts out his hand it's not time yet. And he knows that. He sacrifices himself to protect his son. And this is the one flashback in the film that could have stayed as a flashback, and I would have been absolutely perfectly acceptable of it because it was so perfectly timed and executed well, and it was absolutely, blissfully, powerfully pitch perfect. Pitch perfect in every way, shape, or form. And then we have Zod and his people come into orbit around the moon. They send a message to the people of the Earth. By the way, somebody explain to me how this works, okay? I can see how they hijacked the internet, the World Wide Web, all media, all digital transmissions on the planet, and sent a message broadcast in every language on the planet, to every digital media surface on the planet, stating that they were not alone, and that there is a survivor of the planet Krypton amongst them. His name is Kal-El, and he has 24 hours to give himself up. I will buy that. I will buy that. That alien technology, I will buy. What I don't buy is how they turned off the power on every city. Now, if you go back and rewatch the scene, the power goes off in Kansas, the power goes off in Metropolis, the power is off in every other foreign, and by foreign I mean outside of the United States that we are shown. Outside of America, everywhere else, in every foreign language, the power is out. How the fuck, with one ship, did the Kryptonians turn out the power on the planet and then turn it back on? Because that's it. That's all I gotta do. That's amazing technology right there. It's 100,000 years old, and it's amazing. It can turn off the power on the planet. So why are we terraforming? I don't understand that. That is another leap in logic. These aliens have the ability to just turn off the power on the planet. They cause a global blackout. That is frightening. Why didn't anybody bring that up? Well, because the plot didn't need us to bring that up. So Clark decides to put on his super suit. He goes and has a talk with the army, and it's all very, and it's all well done for the most part. He decides to turn himself over to Zod. He gets taken up to the spaceship with Lois Lane because the Kryptonians wanted her. I don't know why. They don't say why. They don't dare say why. We just need Lois Lane on this spaceship too. And then in what is the second most confusing sequence in the film, after the whole chronological foobar with the flashback, present bullshit, Superman enters a dream. He's like knocked out, and then he is somehow dreaming, but he's talking to General Zod at the same time. Now later they kind of clarify that the Kryptonians have the ability to go into people's minds and extract information, but at the time we have no idea that that's what's going on. So Zod talks to Clark in his mind. He shows him all these images, and then Clark wakes up, and it's like, oh, he was dreaming. But then Zod continues talking as if they were continuing their conversation, and it's like, what was that? What just happened? Now, you're supposed to infer that, but they never explicitly state, we were in your mind. Even later, Lois says something like, hey, I'm sorry, I told them all this stuff about you, but I didn't want to because they were in their mind. And he goes, oh yeah, it happened to me too. How? Just like, how did you black out the entire planet? How do you have 100,000-year-old technology that still works and is still able to terraform the fucking planet? How does this work? So, in admittedly what is some of the most intense, visceral, brutal, amazing action sequences that I've ever seen in a film, Superman engages the other Kryptonians in fisticuffs. It is terrifying to see Superman finally unleash himself and actually get to fight back, because we see multiple scenes of him like not fighting. And there's one more flashback where he I don't fucking care about the flashbacks anymore. They're just all out of place except for the Pa Kent's death. That's it. Jonathan Kent's death stays where it is. All the other flashbacks, put them in chronological order, and then go to the beginning of the film where we see grown-up Clark Kent rescuing the people on the oil rig. Alright, there you go. Okay. I'm not even excited about the action sequences anymore because they exist, and they're fantastic, and they're thrilling, and they're visceral, and that is honestly the reason why you should see this film in the theaters, is because literally Metropolis is leveled due to the violence that ensues. So I'm glossing over a large swath of this film right now, because once the film kicks into high gear like this and it just starts going, it's awesome, and it's very cool, and it's very entertaining, and that's worth seeing it in the theaters for. The story is stupid as fuck. But the action sequences are very cool. Despite the high notes that this film hits, this film is all about the action sequences and the special effects, and they do a very, very good job. People wanted to see a film in which Superman hit stuff. You got it. You got it. Now, I hope you're happy, because they're going to do more of these. We didn't hit an emotional core with Superman. I didn't feel anything for him. I didn't feel anything for him. Maybe because I was so busy trying to figure out, chronologically speaking, what the fuck was even going on. But I didn't feel anything for him. The most... there's more audience connection, I think, with Jonathan Kent, because we see that he's trying to protect his son, especially in that moment at the tornado. And there's more emotional connection and investment in the audience with Perry White and Jenny Olsen, and during the destruction of Metropolis, where they're about to die, and Perry refuses to leave Jenny by herself. and he stays with her. And that is probably one of the most human moments in the film. But then there's destruction, action, chaos. They find a way to defeat the Kryptonians, and then it's just Clark and Zod. And again, it's thrilling and breathtaking and visceral and violent and brutal and heart-wrenching, and it's just amazing. But then just when you think we've gotten all the action sequences right, suddenly we're back to, because yeah, shit is happening, and people are kind of caught in the crossfire, but then we go to the Superman and Zod fight, and people are just kind of standing around casually while all this bullshit is going on, and these two superpowered aliens are duking it out with each other. They're just standing there. They're just kind of I swear to shit, that is the exact face that some people are making. They're like they're really, are we gonna hit each other again? Oh, that building just fell down. Should I run now? Wow, talk about injecting some stupid juice into the middle of the film. We're having a rollicking, great fist fight between two superpowered aliens. I don't need to think about the idiocy of these people not running away, let alone the fact that Superman is inadvertently causing collateral damage due to his epic fist fight with Zod that I should be thoroughly enjoying right now. I should be throwing popcorn into my face, drinking soda with abandon, can't take my eyes off the screen, and then I see these doe-eyed, blank-faced people standing around is it over? Am I a fraud? And I'm like, run! Run, you fucking idiots! Why are you just standing around? Do what? Run! In fucking Transformers, people ran, and I mean, Transformers is dumb as fuck. And this outdumbed that. That sequence where Superman and Zod are fighting, and then you see the people standing around man, that just outdumbed some of the dumbest fucking dumb I've ever fucking seen. Superman and Zod land in Grand Central Metropolis Station or some shit, and people are still standing around like fucking idiots despite these two gods duking it out. And then we get to probably the most controversial, and yet I feel powerful scenes of the film. And it's amazing how there's all these gold nuggets nestled amongst the shit of this film. Superman kills Zod. He's forced to. Zod unleashes his heat vision. Superman is trying to steer him away from zapping these innocent bystanders. Zod is just pouring it on, and Superman is forced to snap his neck. In both times I saw this film, that moment, everyone in the audience went, silence. Except for a couple of people. In the first time I saw it, I literally heard someone go, holy shit. Second time I saw this film, I literally heard someone go, Jesus Christ. Because you don't expect that from Superman. And, that was definitely one of the few scenes I have ever seen in which an act of desperate violence felt justified on behalf of the protagonist. Superman had to do that. He doesn't kill. We've never seen Superman kill, but he had to do that because he made his choice to protect humanity. And killing Zod in that moment was absolutely justified and necessary for this film to work, and it did. And then the anguish on Superman's behalf immediately afterward, realizing that he has just participated in the second extinction of his people, is just heartbreaking. And then we kind of wrap things up. Superman tells the army that he doesn't want them looking out or trying to check up on him. They say, how can we trust you? And he goes, I don't know. I'm just going to have to. I'm just going to have to trust you. And he flies away. And then we get the question of, well, what are you going to do when you're not saving the world? And I thought to myself, It's a very interesting question, Miss Martha Kent, because we've seen multiple people. Lois Lane figured out that Clark Kent was this mysterious alien visitor. Okay. Then we got Pete Ross, who from the comic books is a mainstay, but as a kid, he saw Clark push a bus out of a river. Then as an adult, I'm pretty sure he recognized Clark Kent in this Superman outfit. Now, by the end of the film, with multiple people calling Superman Clark, by the end of the film, pretty much everyone knows that this guy, or who this guy is. It's kind of inescapable at this point. And so it surprised the shit out of me that they had the balls to pull off the whole, I'm going to have a secret identity as a reporter at the Daily Planet. And my name is going to be Clark Kent. It doesn't work. So many people have seen him. So many people have heard his name. Within the course of the film itself, I'm surprised that half of everyone doesn't know that Clark Kent, the Kent Farm, the aliens specifically go to the Kent Farm. It doesn't take much to put one and one together. Why are you going with the secret identity route at the end and giving him the glasses, and he didn't even bother to change his hair? He's just... That made me mad. That made me really mad. They could have left the whole secret identity thing out. Really, really gone over the edge and like, oh, he has no secret identity. I mean, Lois Lane at the end clearly goes, oh, hey you. She doesn't let on to everybody else that she knows who he is, but she doesn't, hey you. And it's like, okay, that's cool. Lois Lane, Clark Kent, okay, she got it. She knows what's up. She knows who this dude really is. That's an interesting dynamic. Clark Kent and Lois Lane, they know from day one, and his job at the Daily Planet, they both know that he is Superman. And they both got a thing for each other. That's an interesting dynamic. But the way that the film sets it up, it doesn't work. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Because even though she didn't tell the army, like, who Clark Kent's real name was, there's so much out there, so many people have seen so much, and you've just got, like, it just doesn't work, based on the nature of this film. So, yeah, I don't know. It's, like I said, it's very entertaining. People have been asking me, since I saw the film, they've been asking me, hey, was it good? And I hesitate to use the word good, because it's not a good film. It's a very entertaining film. But this movie is very much like Prometheus. And it is, in fact, this year's Prometheus. It is a very entertaining B movie. Prometheus left me very angry. I still ended up buying it on Blu-ray because I enjoyed it as an experience enough to warrant watching it again. Man of Steel, I do not know if I will purchase it on Blu-ray or not, but I did thoroughly enjoy it as a piece of entertainment. But it is not as intelligent as it makes itself out to be. It does not tell a cohesive or coherent story, and it is not a good film in the sense of being a total package film. On a scale of 1 to 10, I initially, after my first viewing, gave it a 7 out of 10, but after my second viewing and realizing, after all the shock and awe, because let me tell you, it's totally thrilling in the action. Totally fucking thrilling as fuck. But after all that shock and awe wore off and I watched it again, I saw all the problems with fresh eyes, and the curtain fell on top of me. I'm going to have to give this a 6 out of 10. It's worth seeing in the theaters for the first viewing. If you want to see it again on Blu-ray after that, I think it'll probably hold up well as a home release. But, and they have already fast-tracked a sequel. I was just reading online that we could even see it as early as next year. They're like, we want to see another one next year. Potentially. Now, how fucked up would that be? Like, how fucked up would that be? Just like, churn that shit out. We're printing gold with this. I really sincerely hope that the sequel is better written and better thought out than this was. Because despite all the visual pizzazz, and despite the excellent acting and the very competent direction, very competent direction, and the actors were great in this. Like I said, I draw very, very large comparisons to Prometheus because, like Prometheus, this is very well acted. Like Prometheus, this is very well directed. Like Prometheus, the special effects and the action are enthralling and they hold your attention. But also like Prometheus, this story and script is a big ball of shit. The story is shit. The screenplay is shit. And the screenplay is solely credited to David S. Goyer. But the story was a combination of Goyer and Christopher Nolan. So, I'm just glad that Christopher Nolan's name was not on the screenwriting, because then I would feel very sad indeed. Alright, I hit 41 minutes, I'm done. I can't go anymore. So, there you go. This is a 6 out of 10. This is 6 out of 10. This is great popcorn film. The first time. Just don't think about it too much. Definitely see it in the theater. It is worth your money to go see it in theaters. But the critics are right. The critics know what's going on. Even if the audience is going, hey, we got what we wanted. We got Superman punching shit. And you know, many kudos to the filmmakers, at least for giving us very well thought out physics in as much as like how the world would react to Superman in the sense of him crashing through things, picking up things, the fight sequences, like, you know, that he doesn't. It's gorgeous and it's glorious and it is awe-inspiring. There's a reason why people watch boxing. There's a reason why people watch MMA, and that's for the fights. You go because you want the fights. That is why people are going to watch this film, and that is why people are going to enjoy this film, and that is why people are going to walk away happy that they spent their money, because of the fights. That is why I enjoyed it the first time. That is why I still enjoyed it for the most part the second time around, because of the fights. But there's not a lot of brains going on in the background here. There is not. Anyways, I am CK Burch. This has been my Geek review of Man of Steel. And I will hopefully be redoing my Star Trek Into Darkness review here in a couple of days. And I will put links in the description below. And I have a book coming out next week. Oh god, you've been listening to me talk for almost 45 minutes. You poor soul. I am so very fucking sorry. I'm gonna go now. Go read Jeff Johns or Grant Morrison's Superman story, because that is far more worthy of your time and attention than the Man of Steel or any of the Superman films that have ever been released. Those are better. The comic books are where it's at. So, have a great night.